everybody, Tai Chi Twins here. I'm Joshua Rorty.
I'm Jeremy Rorty, and today we wanted to show you guys how to repurpose weapons. We were going through our big collection of broken sticks, and we came across these sticks that we bought one time just for the kids to use, learning their 24 count or whatever. But you know how kids are, they get really rough with these sticks. So these three were pretty badly splintered. I don't know why we were keeping them except for this particular video. We noticed that two of them had some 9-inch sections on them that would be perfect for making a pair of speed chucks.
Now, if you watched our video on the coiling dragon staff, we talked a little bit about the history of the nunchucks. And it initially come over to Japan from a Shaolin monk with a 3-section staff. 3-section staff, however, because it made it as a Shaolin weapon, it got a really grand name like the coiling dragon staff. The nunchucks, those were actually based off of the Taiwanese word Nunchaku, which means wooden clackers. Not too fancy, but they did get used as weapons in combat.
The person that really made the nunchaku famous was Bruce Lee. He put them out in a couple of his movies and people just fell in love with them. A lot of other movies used them, typically in scenes of gangs using them. And because this was seen in the popular media that way, a lot of governments outlawed these weapons. When really gangs didn't use these weapons, they were more in danger of hurting yourself rather than hurting somebody else unless you really trained in these weapons. Typically, gangs don't like to spend a lot of time training in weapons.
So make sure that you check your local laws if you're thinking about making something like this. You know, for the most part, if you're training in an art that uses nunchucks and you've got your belt and you've got your jacket, you're probably fine carrying them to your dojo or using them in a tournament. But always double check and make sure they're legal to make because you don't want to get yourself in trouble. So let's take a look at how we repurpose some of our old sticks to make speed chucks. The dowel we're using on this project is small enough that we didn't want to do any carving, so we only drilled the holes for threading them together. Once we finished with all the sanding, we left them in the stabilization tank until they sank to the bottom, which took a total of 7 days. When they were done, the mass of the sticks increased from 54.6 grams all the way up to 95.7 grams, almost double their weight. Even though we only want about 4 inches of space between the two sticks, we're going to use 2 feet. That way the string can be doubled and we'll have extra room to work with. This time though, the holes we drilled were smaller, so we're only going to use part of our paracord. We're going to remove the inner strands by cutting each end and then just pulling them through. Each strand individually, including the sheath, will hold about 70 pounds. 70 pounds doubled over is going to be 140 pounds, which is more than enough for this project. To keep the ends from fraying and also to make a better tip to thread with, you'll want to melt the ends with a lighter and form them into points. We go into a more in-depth explanation of the threading process in our previous video on the coiling dragon staff. Here's a quick overview. Start by threading your line through the end hole and out through the top hole on the side. Then thread it all the way through the bottom hole. Make sure to pull enough line through so you can thread it back through the top hole and out the end. To connect the other stick, take one line, thread it through the hole on the end and out the hole on the top. Then thread it all the way through the bottom hole. Now take the other side of your line and thread it in through the end hole and out the other top hole. This is where you want to adjust the distance between the sticks to the width of your hand. Now take that second line and pass it back through the bottom hole. It'll be a tighter fit, so you might have to use a hook to pull it through. Finally, cut the ends to make them even, and then use a lighter to melt and fuse them to the strings on the side. Since the dowel was too thin to carve finger grooves in, we decided to use some leftover tennis tape from a previous project. This not only improves the grip, but also makes the nunchucks look cool and pads it in case we hit ourselves. While the end result is similar to size and mass to a regular fighting stick, there are also many differences between the two. So let's take a look at how these work.
Now, one of the issues you come across with using a weapon like a short stick or a long stick is it's a little bit harder to conceal. There are certain ways I could hold this that would hide it, but generally, if I'm holding this in my hand, people know that I have a weapon. So I'm going to get rid of that. Oh, geez, sorry about that. Oh, man. You all right? All right, well, okay. We'll check on him later, make sure he's okay. However, if you have a more compact weapon and you're just sitting here talking, you're trying to be nice, and then the person all of a sudden tries to get crazy, you have your weapon just right there. It's compact, quick moving. That's the speed chucks. Let's take a look at how to use these weapons. Now, this isn't an exhaustive video on how to use the nunchaku, but this is really more of matching this up with our movements of the stick, some of just the basic movements. If you haven't seen our basic stick movements video, we'll put a link up here. But basically what I'm looking at is I've got downward circles, I've got figure eights, right? We can change that upward circles, upward figure eights. So all the same movement as the stick, except for the fact that when it's broken in the middle, it allows the end to have much more whip. I can get more momentum behind it. And with the weapon being a force multiplier, that really gives these an advantage. I also have the ability to really quickly change directions. If I'm striking here, I can bounce it off my back or off my shoulder and change directions. I can catch it under my arm, give it a little tension, allows it to whip out really quick with a lot of power. Passing under my arm allows me to switch directions really easy. Passing it around my neck. So it's very unorthodox with the way that you can attack with these. One of the lessons that I learned very quickly when I was first trying to figure this weapon out, I didn't have a teacher to teach me this stuff, so it's just a life lesson. When you strike your target, you can't just hit your target because it's going to bounce back. You have to follow through with your strike. And you'll notice that as I'm doing these movements, none of them stop. They follow all the way through the target. And so that's what I'm looking for here. It might bounce off really briefly. It kind of caught me in my hand a little bit. But the fact that I followed through and by the time it bounced off that target, it was just barely a bump on my hand. Same type of feeling that I get when I'm bouncing off my other body parts. A basic exercise that you can use to make yourself more comfortable with this weapon is a stick exercise called the 24 count. If you haven't seen that, we have a link for it right here. Here it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Bring it back over my shoulder and I can start again. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, like it and make sure to share that with a friend. Click the subscribe button and then hit that notification bell so you can catch our next exciting video.